and the students of the Solano Youth Coalition. The Solano League entered into a partnership with the Solano Youth Coalition last year to provide Solano students hands-on civics learning opportunities such as this forum, in preparation for them to enter society, understanding how government works, but more importantly, what they have to do, what citizens must do to make it work. Again, I want to thank you for coming, and now I'd like to introduce my sister friend from the Delta Sigma Theta sorority.
Good evening, hello. My name is Lana Raspberry. I am the Social Action Chair for Solano Valley Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And I bring greetings from the chapter and our president, Lisa Grant Dawson. Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated is an organization of college-educated women committed to the constructive development of its members and to public service with a focus on the Black community. We are a private, not-for-profit organization whose purpose is to provide assistance and support through established programs in our local communities throughout the world. Over the years, a wide range of programs addressing education, health, political awareness, international development, and strengthening of the African American family have evolved. The sorority was founded in 1913 by 22 young college women. It now currently has 1,000 collegiate and alumni chapters located in the United States, Canada, Tokyo, Japan, Okinawa, Germany, the Virgin Islands, Bermuda, the Bahamas, Jamaica, West Africa, and the Republic of Korea. The Solano Valley Alumni Chapter was chartered in 1991 and serves the Solano County cities of Fairfield, Sassoon, Vacaville, Rio Vista, Dixon, and Travis Air Force Base. Throughout our chapter's history, we have hosted or collaborated with other community organizations to provide candidate forums, voter registration, opportunities to serve as precinct workers, coordinate blood drives, and facilitate after-school youth programs, just to name a few. Tonight, we hope you get more of your questions answered and concerns addressed from the candidates who were able to join us, so you can make a more informed choice on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, I am Dawood Mohamed, and I am representing the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Theta Pi chapter. Our organization was founded on Howard University's campus in Washington, D.C. on November 17th, 1911. We are an organization of college-educated African-American men with the goal of uplifting the African-American community. Among our mandated programs is voter education, registration, and mobilization. Speaking of which, we spent last weekend in conjunction with the Delta Sigma Theta sorority registering voters here in Solano County. Our specific chapter was founded July 31st, 1973. And we, with the motto of a reservoir of help to the total community. We're here to fulfill our mandated program of education of the voters so that they can make informed decisions. Thank you. I'm also charged with reading the audience rules. As a matter of courtesy, please turn off your electronic devices. Refrain from applauding, calling out, etc., whether it's something you agree with or not. Note that no campaign literature, buttons, signs, clothing signs are permitted in the forum room in order to maintain neutrality. All candidates will be given equal time to answer the same question. When appropriate, you will submit your questions in written form. Cards and pencils will be provided, and those cards will be collected and brought over to the screeners. Online guests will submit questions in chat. All questions will be screened to avoid duplication and anything inappropriate. If time allows, we have to be out by 8. You can meet and interact with the candidates when the forum ends. Restrooms are outside and down the hall to the right, Thank you.
Good evening, City of Vacaville residents. My name is Nikhila Gibson, and I'm the Economic Development Chair for Tri-City NAACP. The Tri-City branch of NAACP has served as the community's advocates for civil rights through voter mobilization, civic engagement, and addressing health and education disparities, and equal opportunity with private and public businesses in Fairfield, Suisun City, and Vacaville communities since March of 1976. This is a subject in which we should be deeply interested because the exchange of ideas and issues discussed today will empower Vacaville citizens to make an informed vote based on knowledge and shared values. Having this opportunity for discussion helps to ensure our growth as a community and the future growth of our generations after. The decisions we make today will affect our tomorrow. It is with great pleasure for me to introduce Danette Mitchell, our moderator for Vacaville's Candidate Forum. Ms. Mitchell is incredibly valuable to the community. She continues to make an impact in everything that she does. Ms. Mitchell is an opinion columnist for The Reporter and a social issues advocate. She is passionate about ensuring that everyone hears the Black voice in Solano County. Ms. Mitchell has served as Tri-City NAACP's Communications, Press, and Publicity Committee Chair since 2017. Ms. Mitchell also has served as an advocate for missing and exploited African Americans, participating in a 2019 column bringing awareness that is often overlooked by mainstream media. This led to her partnering with another Solano resident to host a human trafficking awareness event in Vallejo. In 2021, Mrs. Mitchell interviewed the National Black and Missing Foundation founders featured in the Black and Missing documentary series hosted by journalist Soledad O'Brien. Ms. Mitchell served as Planning Committee co-chair for Vacaville's inaugural Black History Celebration and Planning Committee member for Vacaville's second annual Black History Celebration. She has also just recently been awarded 2022 Woman of the Year for Solano County, Unsung Shiro Award from Tri-City NAACP, Executive Committee Member of the Year. She was honored as one of the 31 Inspiring Women of Vacaville, receiving the Black Woman Organized for Political Action, Ella Hill Hutch Award, and Rockstar Volunteers in Solano County. Please, everyone, welcome Ms. Danette Mitchell as our moderator.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson, for the kind introduction. Good evening. Welcome to the League of Women Voters, Solano County, District 2 and 6 Candidates Forum. A huge thank you to our candidates for being here. I am honored to be the moderator of this important event. Before we get started, I would like to go over and reiterate a couple of ground rules that have already been mentioned. Our candidates have all agreed to participate under the guidelines of fairness and civility set for this forum. The views expressed are those of the candidates, not the sponsoring organizations. The sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement of any candidate. All verified candidates have been invited. As a matter of courtesy, I ask that everyone please turn off electronic devices. To maintain neutrality, please be aware that campaign literature or other forms of campaigning, such as buttons, t-shirts, and signs, are not permitted inside the forum room. To give access to the broader community, we are streaming and videotaping on YouTube. This function allows the public to participate. In addition, the live stream YouTube video will be saved automatically for future view on the League of Women Voters Solano County website. Except for approved media, No flash photography can be used during the forum. No applause, cheering, or boo-hooing are allowed from the audience. Please hold your applause until the end of the event. For those who are watching online, you may place your questions in the chat. Audience members will be provided with index cards to submit written questions. All questions will be screened to avoid duplication and any question judged inappropriate. Each candidate has 3 minutes for opening remarks, 2 minutes to answer questions, and 3 minutes for closing remarks. The timekeeper will signal candidates with colored signs. When the allotted time has expired, candidates will be allowed no more than 10 seconds to finish a sentence before the moderator interrupts. Candidates' opening remarks will be determined alphabetically and alternate at the closing statements. The order of answering questions will also alternate between the questions. Candidates can ask the moderator to repeat the question. No candidate is allowed to address another candidate during the forum. And again, the candidates are voicing their own views and goals about their position to the audience, and not the sponsoring organizations. So let's begin the forum. First off, the 2 candidates for District 2 were invited. However, they declined to participate. We will move on to our District 6 City Council candidates. Our first District City Council candidate is Mr. Tapac Chastain. I will read his bio. Mr. Tapac Chastain has lived in Vacaville for over 20 years. He retired from the city of Vacaville with a career of nearly 30 years. He states, quote, "Vacaville needs leadership that has the ability to address the problems we face now and a vision to address the problems we face in the future. I ask for your support to do this for our community," end quote. Mr. Chastain, please give your opening statement. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Vacaville, don't be fooled. It is not difficult.
Yeah.
No. Vacaville, don't be fooled. It is not difficult to put in crosswalks. It is difficult attending funerals. Don't be fooled. It is the council's responsibility to ensure developers cannot exploit our city. Don't be fooled. Your children should not be taught in closets, hallways, and on the floor. Do not be fooled. Your creeks have overgrowth that will cause flooding. Do not be fooled. Public safety services allowed to falter will lead to unnecessary fatalities. Do not be fooled by the excuses, lack of foresight, and accountability by our current and previous city council. My name is Tapac Chastain for City Council District 6.
Thank you. Our second District 6 City Council candidate is Mrs. Jeanette Wiley. I will read her bio. Mrs. Jeanette Wiley serves on the Vacaville City Council representing District 6 since November 2020. She has lived in Vacaville for 31 years. Mrs. Wiley taught in 3 Travis elementary schools and served as president of the Travis Teachers Association until retiring in 2018. She has held additional leadership roles at her church, the County Democratic Committee, and working with youth. Mrs. Wiley states, quote, "She is eager to continue representing residents in South Vacaville as a council member," end quote. Mrs. Wiley, please give your opening statement. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Jeanette Wylie, and I am currently on the City Council after being elected in 2020. I've lived in District 6, which is south of Alamo, east of Peabody, for 31 years. And when the City Council went to districts, I thought it was a great time to step in because I did not feel that District 6 had been previously represented. I ran to be the voice for South Vacaville, and I believe that I have done that. I work a lot with residents. They're often surprised when they call and I answer the phone and they say, "Oh, is this you?" Yes, it is. You know, I don't have a secretary, so I talk to residents. I feel like I have done a good job. I go prepared to meetings. I listen to all sides before I make a vote. And so for that reason, I'm running for re-election. As you know, things often move slowly, and so in the 2 years, you don't get a lot accomplished sometime. So projects have been started, but we haven't got them completed. One issue is dealing with traffic and the need of a crosswalk on Nut Tree Road. People have talked to me about that for a long time. And I have talked with the traffic department in the city, but there are steps that you have to go through to get things like that done. I have got a lot of positive feedback from residents, from city staff, and from other people about the job that I've done. I feel like my work as a teacher and in the church and those leadership roles have prepared me for the job that I'm doing. I worked on the Health Services Committee and also the bargaining as a teacher president, and those are things that we are working with as a city. Because the city business is very complex. There's so many departments, and it's important to work with all of them and see what the needs are. And I really need to hear from the residents to see how they perceive things and their needs for the city as well. I feel like we need services for youth, we need services for our families, and we need services for seniors. I currently am the only woman and the only senior on the council, and I feel as such I have a different perspective than some of the other members, and so I am very comfortable making statements or asking questions about the way things have been done and bringing up other points of view. I do want to really work toward having a full service city for all Vacaville residents so that everyone has the same opportunities and the same amenities. So I do really thank you for being here, because it is so important to be informed voters and have an informed electorate. And that's what the purpose of tonight is, so that you can hear about our views. And it's Wylie for the win. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wiley. It's time to begin the questions. The first round of questions was developed by the forum sponsors. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the same question. Our first question will go to Mr. Chastain. How can the city benefit if you are elected?
Great question. You know, I wanted to begin, thank you. I wanted to begin by hello? I wanted to begin by letting all the people affected by Hurricane Ivan, that we send our thoughts and prayers to you. There's so much of this that's been devastated by Hurricane Ivan. I know we're all read that, but the way that the city can benefit by me being elected is, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back inclusiveness to the community by allowing everybody to participate in city council meetings. Right now, only a portion of the people can participate in city council meetings. So that's the first thing. That's the low fruit. I'm going to go for the low fruit and work my way from there. There's so much stuff that can be done so quickly. I've said this time and time again. Public safety starts in the most simplest and basic of ways. 2 lines on the street and 2 signs at the end of those lines is not difficult to get done. Traffic engineering is not a difficult thing. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're simply just painting 2 lines in the street and putting 2 signs on each side of those lines. Really, really simple stuff. So what I'll do for the community, what I'll do for the community is I'll bring inclusiveness back to the city council meetings, allowing everybody to participate in city council meetings, and really, just take care of the business that should have been taken care of in the last 2 years, and the things that were allowed to develop in the years previous to that. Kids shouldn't be sitting on the floors in schools. Developers shouldn't be exploiting the loopholes that we have in our building plans. Economic development shouldn't be limited to large, mega-sized corporations that come into our town that doesn't bring sales tax into our town. Without the sales tax, we're not going to have the public safety we need. We're taking away the benefit of working at the city by taking away their benefits, and we haven't become creative in actually being able to supply those bring people into the city to want to work here. So it's a lot of It's a full circle thing. One problem begets another, but these are things that can be taken care of so quickly. It really doesn't take a long time. We're not reinventing anything here. There's no reason we don't have dispensaries in our city. There's no reason that we have public safety that want to work in the neighboring cities. There's no reason that it's taking 2 years to get crosswalks put in. And there's no reason that developers are coming in and fully exploiting all the loopholes we have in our building plans. And so that's what I bring to the city. Inclusiveness for everybody, not just talking about it, doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mrs. Wiley, if you are re-elected, how will you benefit the city?
Thank you. We'll see how this works. I feel like I would be a benefit to the city because of the 2 years that I've previously been on the council. In 2020, when we went to districts, we went from 5 members to 7 members, and currently 5 members that are sitting at the table were elected in 2020, 4 in 2020 and 1 in 2021 for District 2 when we had that special election. So we have worked together, and I have worked to be collaborative and sort of listen to other people as well. I don't think this is the time to add another new person on the council. So that's one thing. Even though 2 years doesn't sound like much experience, that's going to be the max after this election, because the mayor is going off and Councilmember Sullivan had 4 years experience. So I feel like the experience that I have would help it be cohesive with the changes that we'll have with a new mayor. The other thing, as I said before, I really have learned a lot about how the city functions in the different departments. As far as having everyone included in the city council meetings, I said we've tried to work together, but that does not mean that you have 7-0 votes a lot. The vote on whether or not to continue hybrid meetings to allow people to be in person and to allow people to call in, that was a 4-3 vote. I was part of the 3. I wanted to have people be able to call in and participate virtually as well. But when you're one of 7 and there's 4 that say we want in-person only, I couldn't change that vote. I will continue to bring that up in the future, but until the council changes, if you have a 4-3 vote and people don't hear from the residents saying we want the option to call in, then it's hard to change that. So there's a lot going on with that. I do have worked on the Travis Regional Armed Forces Committee, and I've been very helpful with that, and it's been very good because the Travis base is so important to us. I had a meeting today with the YOLO Solano Air Quality Management District, and we tragically lost the CEO in an accident earlier this year, so I'm involved in the search for a new CEO for the YOLO Solano. So I feel like I'm representing Vacaville in a very good way as a council member on these other committees as well. So that experience is another benefit that I would bring. And I do really support our strategic goals, and one of them is that all residents can benefit and have a full service city. I'm also really interested in improving our parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wiley. Our second question is about Measure M. It goes to you, Mrs. Wiley. How do you propose to use Measure M money for parks and recreation in District 6?
All right, with the change to districts, we also started something called District Dollars, and that is part of Measure M money as well. And so we had, $50,000 to spend within our district. And when I had a town hall meeting, I talked to the residents what they were interested in, and they were interested in having a cleanup similar to what we've had in other parts of town. We've had some big major citywide cleanups in the Markham area and one last week over near Three Oaks. So I told the people we couldn't have a big one like that, but I would see if we could have a similar kind of cleanup. And so last April, we spent district money, and that was Measure M money, and we worked with getting Recology in, and we were able to have residents bring things that they were wanting to get rid of out of their house, out of their garage, out of their backyards, and we got rid of 22 tons worth of stuff. And they kept saying, well, this is great, when can we do it again? And, you know, if I am elected again, that would be something that I would do because people like that. So I feel like the parks in District 6 and other parks need to be improved as well. There's an area that needs to have a sidewalk because they don't have a sidewalk from one area to another. So that's another part that's important. So basically, when I want to make a decision about what I'm going to do for District 6, I rely on public input to find, you know, to figure that out. I do think it's important that people see their District M dollars at work in their area, and I'm more in favor of doing a lot of things where the need is, rather than let's build one big thing and that's our measure in money is in one big thing. I want all communities and districts to benefit.
Mr. Chastain, same question. You want me to repeat it?
Can you repeat, please? Thank you.
Of course. How do you propose to use Measure M money for parks and recreation in District 6?
I think I got this figured out now. I don't have to keep pressing the button. Okay, so that's a great question. $17 million is about what we're putting in right now on the additional taxes that we're putting in on selling stuff in Vacaville. The more stuff that we sell in Vacaville, the more measure of money we bring in. That's where the business ties into wanting to bring more measurement and money into Vacaville. So spending it on parks and recreation is a huge thing. So we have a Parks and Recreation division, and currently our Parks and Recreation division is doing what many divisions are doing in the city, and they're hiring analysts, they're hiring consultants, and they're hiring a lot of people on their staff to tell them how to do their job, and that's where a lot of that money is going. So a lot of your parks money is going for anything but parks. It's going for staffing to figure out how they want to spend the money, and that's something that happens over and over in government, and it's not right. So how would I spend the money? Directly on the parks in the community, adding parks, making the parks better. There's so many ways, you know, but going back to what I had said previously with the crosswalks, it's difficult to enjoy a park if you can't get to it because there's not a crosswalk to access it. So, you know, thank you.
Thank you. Now we go to our third question to Mr. Chastain. Do you see new construction as a prevalent issue in District 6? What are your plans to address it?
Thank you for that question, Ms. Mitchell. Yeah, there are issues with construction in our district. There's issues with traffic, there's issues with the overpopulation of it. The issues go on and on. We don't have the infrastructure to support the growth that we have going on in our district. So what we have in Vacaville right now is there's an attempt to deal with the issue with the growth and different developers coming in and exploiting Vacaville right now, and it's called the Housing Element Plan. So there's a new Housing Element Plan coming out trying to deal with that exploitation. It's not really a very good plan. It's a plan that's going to require a lot of oversight, a lot of changes. Travis School District, right now, speaking of District 6 specifically, isn't even included in that plan. There's discussion of Vacaville School District, but not Travis School District. It has in there talking about hiring more staff. It has in there the addition of additional staff in the housing element plan for the housing department. And so it just includes so much stuff that has nothing to do with the issues that we're facing from the developers coming in, that it's really not going to help. Right now, we also have an issue going on over there with the developer that they've kind of pushed him off a little bit of time to be able to develop the large structure they want to develop. It's going to result into a lot of lawsuits coming in towards the city, and unless there's some out-of-box thinking, it's going to happen, and it's going to result in catastrophe. So, you know, it's a really difficult situation we put ourselves in because we have no forethought, and it's not an excuse by anybody that anybody can have saying it's something that happened before I was here. That's something we come into the job knowing that we're going to have to fix problems from the past moving into the future. Thank you.
Mrs. Wiley, same question.
So construction for District 6 is a big continuing thing. As I said, I've been in District 6 for 30 years, and when I first moved to town from the Midwest, I got, a house half the size for twice the price is what I had in Missouri, and a 0 lot line, which was something I thought, what is a 0 lot line? It was a very small yard is what a 0 lot line was. So I was not used to that sort of housing, and since I've been there in 30 years, I've seen that sort of housing and more continue to the east of me. And then later on, my family did move from that smaller house to a little bit bigger house when the kids were older. And then we watched it move on further to Southtown, and now we're seeing it has moved on the other side of Leisuretown. So I haven't seen that in my time that's here. District 6 is almost all houses, and that's one of the issues. We don't have many amenities, no grocery stores that are close by or other things like that. But I will say, it's not an excuse, but the things that were planned, in 2008, 2010 and approved and were on the books, you can't just go in there and say, stop that, or then, you talk about lawsuits, that would be a big issue. So I do say that one thing we have done is we have changed the fees for the developers because it hadn't been updated since, I think, 1996 or something. And so that's why so many large houses were being built, because they can make more profit on that. So we lowered the fees for smaller houses so to incentivize building smaller or moderate-sized houses, so that we don't have all the huge houses that are so expensive to people. And so construction will continue to be an issue as it relates to all the increased traffic. So lack of amenities, increased traffic is a bad thing.
Thank you. Our next question. Our city has an unfunded liability, a $78.2 million problem because of the city's unsustainable employee retirement and health care programs. Although the city has taken steps to reduce this number, more must be done. What do you think are the next steps to further reduce this liability to ensure Vacaville's fiscal health? Mrs. Wiley.
As I said, I spent a lot of time as the president of the Teachers Union, and so I work closely with the school and costs. And so the health care benefit was a committee that I was always on, and we were looking at what teachers were getting and what they were paying. It's very rare to have lifetime benefits, and some of the nice plans that we had in Vacaville when I first moved in. So that is a big issue and led to this unfunded liability. Several years ago, they did change the new hires, so the new hires did not get the same nice benefits that people that are still there are getting. So if you are just hired today, you're not going to get lifetime benefits, but the people that are still remaining do. So, but that number is getting smaller and smaller. So that is making a difference. And paying down on the unfunded liability was approved, and that is making a difference. We have looked at, let's pay down even more to shorten that gap as well. When you have something like an unfunded liability, it just keeps growing if you don't address it. So yes, we still have it, but it's a lot less than it was, and it's being addressed. One thing that I would like to see is when employees or their families reach Medicare age, that they would, be going to the Medicare system rather than continuing on the lifetime benefits that are paid by the city. When teachers, if you retired, your health benefits stopped unless you paid them on your own. There was nothing else. So in the city, if you choose not to go to Medicare, you still have your benefits. So I think that that would be important to make that change. Combined with the other two changes, it will continue to make a difference.
Thank you. Mr. Chastain.
Hello. Excellent question, thank you. So currently, this is probably 3 council meetings ago, slipped in towards the end of the council meeting, we decided to start using Measure M funds to pay down the unfunded liabilities. Ken Matsusuma, you can check it out yourself, it's on YouTube, he puts it right in the city council meeting that we're going to use instead of going to parks or recreation or something that benefits the community, we decided to start paying for the bills that we've been accruing for a very long time. That's how we're paying it down. We're paying it down by that, and then the other way that we're paying it down is by, like Jeanette had mentioned, we've stopped the types of benefits that we were offering to Vacaville employees, which has made Vacaville a less desirable place to work, which has sent a lot of people in our public safety and throughout the city wanting to work for other city organizations. So it's hard to hire right now in Vacaville because there hasn't been any out-of-the-box kind of thinking to make it to where Vacaville really brings people in. So there needs to be some out-of-the-box thinking that makes this a place that people want to work and a place that we can afford to pay those employees. Lots and lots and lots of different options. Lots of options. We could go on for a long time about those options. You know, that's we can offer public safety, no interest house loans. There we can offer the cafeteria plan and medical and benefits. There's lots and lots of options that can be out there on the table, but that's what caused our unfunded liabilities. The other thing is that we have people that make incredible amounts of money. Our police chief, our fire chief, our city manager, really, really high salaries, and then they retire out and they collect those salaries, and they were golden handshaking each other like crazy when I worked there. And that's really what's put us in the situation we are in now. Thank you for the marker.
Thank you. Our next question is about the Vacaville's housing strategy plan. Do you think Vacaville housing strategy plan adopted to address current and future housing needs does enough to address affordable housing? If not, what do you suggest the city do to address affordable housing? Mrs. Wiley.
First for two in a row then. All right. That's okay. That's okay. Let's see. Housing and the housing strategy. I do think that housing is a very complicated issue, particularly, in California, because we have tried to look at, building affordable housing, and the cost per unit are just really kind of crazy when you look at the total amount of cost for those. So it's hard to build something affordable when you're paying so much to build it. But we are looking at ways to do that. So the housing strategy is also very lengthy and has a lot of parts to it, and you have to look at a whole lot of different options for housing. And that's one thing that Vacaville lacked, I believe. We didn't have a nice mix of houses available because a lot of it was at the high end. And there's a long list of people that are waiting for affordable housing or senior housing that I think that we need to clearly do more. So our current council has approved 2 senior housing and 1 is under construction. And the other thing that we approved was like mixed middle housing downtown off the East Main area. That has been an area that they tried to get a project going and then it fell through, and so hopefully that will go again. So the RENA numbers, which is the regional housing allotment, they have Vacaville slotted for a whole lot of houses coming in. So we really do need to address that. I see in my neighborhood, well, parts of District 6, a lot of the new homes do have those accessory dwelling units. So that is one thing. And the Habitat for Humanity homes we approved, we're going to have accessory dwelling units to allow those homeowners to be able to have an income source with rent as well. So there's a lot to do with housing.
Thank you. Boy, history does repeat itself with the housing issue. So you build smaller houses and they're more affordable houses. If you look at the houses that we're building over in the side of town that we live in, out there in District 6 area, they're $700,000, $800,000 houses. These are houses, the prices just seem completely unobtainable to anybody. There's Melrose, there's all kinds of different fees associated with being able to live out there, and they are beautiful homes. They're beautiful homes. It's just that most people can't afford them. It's so we don't have any first-time kind of buyer houses. This is an issue that took place here in Vacaville in the 80s. At the time, the city manager, John Thompson, he realized that we weren't going to be able to build just more affordable houses because we wouldn't have the money to support all the infrastructure that we needed to support. So he built the factory outlet stores, the Orange Drive out there, the auto row, to be able to bring more sales tax in so we could afford to build cheaper houses. These were like the Dream Street project and things like that. So one problem does beget the other. It's not a really complex thing. Build smaller houses and they're more affordable.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
For our next question, and I will go with you, Mr. Chastain, first. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are not just political buzzwords for many of us, but are indeed critical, addressable aspects of our quality of life. Do you believe the current City Council is doing enough to address key issues that disproportionately affect ethnic minorities? If elected to serve on the City Council, what are your plans to address issues specific to the Black and brown citizens?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. So if we go back to when the pandemic started, we had the new council coming in, we had issues with our Vacaville Police Department where we had some police officers that were caught beating up some special needs kids in town, or a special needs child. Police officer that was caught beating up their own patrol dog. And then we had other individuals in the community that were ethnic individuals, and they also were being harassed and discriminated against and not being allowed to have a voice. That's about the time that people being able to remotely participate in city council meetings ended. It was bad PR for Vacaville, and the best way to get rid of that is shut people up. So I'd like to bring back the voice for everybody to participate in council meetings and let their council people, the leadership, know how they feel and what's going on. At the last council meeting, we had Nolan Sullivan who mentioned, well, we still have people that are not rioting downtown, but we're going and expressing their dishappiness with the city. What are we going to do about that? And he was asking the police chief about that. And I thought, boy, that is just so horrible. If you have members of the community that are unhappy with what's going on, bring them in and give them a chance to talk about it and address those issues. Don't sweep it under the rug. It was my approach. Don't sweep it under the rug. Address it and deal with it, and don't play like it doesn't exist.
Mrs. Wiley.
Thank you for the question. I think it's a very important topic, and it does definitely need to be addressed. When we had the specific goals for the city passed up from the previous council, we added one that said we needed to look at diversity, inclusion, and equity in an effort to reach all citizens and make Vacaville a better place to be. So to that end, and we had a consultant come, and it was just a long time getting the person scheduled, and then we weren't able to have the meeting in person. And so I keep asking when I meet with the city manager, what are we doing with this now? What are we doing with this now? We can't just say, oh, we had the meeting and be done with it. So I think it needs to be on the forefront of all kind of decision making that people are talking about. And one thing that would help with that is good communication, which I feel like the city needs to improve, because I look for things on the webpage and I can't find them, or people didn't know this meeting was going on. So communication to all people so they can find out. And if people aren't finding out, how can we better communicate and get the message out? And in staffing, we want to have our staffing in public safety, in Parks and Rec, in all areas to represent the people of Vacaville. We also approved the place of peace, and I said, I don't want to sign this resolution just to sign a resolution. If we are saying that Vacaville needs to be the place of peace, then we need to make it that way. So I feel like it is a very important topic. I feel like we can't just say, we had a meeting. What actual gains are we making to be more inclusive and diverse and to be a more equitable city?
Thank you. Our next question is about water, and Mrs. Wiley, you are up next for this question. In July 2021, Governor Gavin Newsom signed Executive Order N-10-21, calling on all Californians to voluntarily use 15% less water compared to 2020 levels. What is your plan to ensure that Vacaville is conserving water?
Water issues have been around for a long time, and they will continue to be around for a long time. My issue with this new ruling was nobody in Vacaville knew about it. You know, it didn't go out if there was supposed to be, if you're in one zip code, 87, water on these days, if you're in 88, water on these days. And it was never really put out to people, so it wasn't a clear message. The other issue is, we can have the city save 15% less water, and it's not going to change California's water issues, because the primary user of water is agriculture, and agriculture needs to use water. I'm not saying they don't, but you can't expect to solve California's water issues by having the homeowners stop watering their lawn as much. An issue is kind of a fake, false. It doesn't solve the problem, because then people stop watering their lawns and their trees, and then we have, you know, dead lawns, and then things look pretty bad that way as well. I have talked with city manager and other people about water issues, because it is a concern for me, and they said, oh, you know, Vacaville doesn't have to worry much about water because we have Lake Berryessa. And we are lucky that we have water source there, but we can't just count on that all the time. And with a teacher group earlier this month, I did take a little water tour on Lake Berryessa with other teachers, and we talked about, you know, the whole resource of water in the state and how it has changed. And so I feel like that Vacaville's water issue is important. It's not necessarily on the front burner like it probably should be.
Thank you. Mr. Chastain?
Yes, ma'am, thank you for that question. So our governors have been after our water for quite a while in this area. Part of our water comes from wells, part of our water comes from the slough area, and part of it comes from Lake Berryessa, a very small part of it. The larger part of it we're getting from the slough area. This has been an issue that I've been concerned about for a while. The governor's been talking about this pipeline project for shipping the water down south. If that happens to take place, then what's going to happen is the delta, or the slough water is going to go further up into the delta. It's going to create a salinity issue, and the place where we get our water from now isn't going to be a place that we can get our water anymore. So we're going to have to start building desalination kind of operations to be able to get our water to where we can drink it. Right now we have an issue with our water quality. It's chromium. I was probably part of the first group that was part of the Vacaville fire hydrant flushing program. We flushed the hydrants here in town to bring our water quality up to meet state levels. Without doing that, then the chlorine levels were less, and our water wasn't meeting state standards. So it is a problem. We're increasing our population, and we're not planning for the water shortages. That is why we built Berryessa, the dam up there. So it's something that unless we do something to plan for the future, we're going to be in some serious trouble, and it will increase it will add a lot to our water bill, and we already pay a whole lot for our water. So we need some serious oversight on where we're going in the future from getting our water. It's going to come from the Sacramento River. That's where it's going to come from, and we need to figure out what we need to do to make that to where it's sustainable for us.
Thank you. It's time for our audience questions. Audience members will be provided with index cards to submit written questions. Again, all questions will be screened to avoid duplication and any question judged inappropriate. For those who are watching online, you may place your questions in the chat. start with the first audience question to Mr. Chastain. How will you address climate change in your future projects?
Climate change issues is another very good question in future projects. So recently, just to get directly to answer your question, recently the city was granted $10 million to make their buses electric, but at the same time there wasn't any discussion about how they were going to charge those buses or power those buses. I think that projects like that need to be responsibly managed, and there needs to be some discussion on how they can charge them before they put electric buses in. Putting solar panels in and to charge those buses would be where I would start. Things of that nature was exactly how I would go. We recently in Vacaville shut down the project out there where we're doing our pharmaceutical kind of additions and expansion for a battery storage place out there, so we could store power out of that part of town, which would have been something that would have benefited Vacaville of having solar panels. Thank you. Solar panels that would have been able to charge those batteries to be able to power Vacaville when the sun's not up. These are things that would help the climate change issue. So if we're going to go electric, then we're going to have to figure out how we're going to power electric. The answers are there. We just need to do that before we do the other. Thank you.
Ms. Wiley?
I believe that climate change is very real, and anyone who denies it doesn't have their eyes open. So it is past time to do something about it. I do think that the city, did one good thing by adding a solar field out by the easterly wastewater. I think that was like one of the first things we voted on, or else they had done it as the last when they were going out. But I feel like we need to have a lot other sort of things like that, because there should be places that we can put other solar panels for the city. We do have electric buses that we had ordered, and we're getting rid of some of the big buses that people weren't riding because they were using more of the smaller personal rides, kind of like the Uber, the city provided Uber, which has been more successful. And then we were putting in a charging station for those electric vehicles. And I'm happy to say that the way they designed it, they had the solar panels on the top of that, so it can charge the power and then charge the buses or the vehicles as well. So that's an important thing. And, the water conservation that we talked about is also important, and letting people be aware of the issues. On the Yolo Solano Air Quality Management District that I serve, we talk about doing a lot of things to remove particulates from the air with burning the fields. We also have talked about, we do rebates for school buses and the replacement of wood-burning fireplaces. So that's another thing that I serve on that is also very helpful, I think.
Thank you. Just waiting on the next audience question. For our next audience question, second one, Mrs. Wiley, you will get this one since Mr. Chastain had the one the first time. It's about schools. What does the city of Vacaville have to do with the Travis Unified School District? We need more schools for the housing growth.
Thank you for that question. There is an issue between what the city council does and what the school district does. So it's not like the city council can just say, hey, we need to make this change. But I totally, like I said, I worked for the Travis district for over 20 years. And at that time, we were kind of crowded in some places. And when Gold Ridge went in, there's a school property there for Gold Ridge. And people wanted to see the school being built at Gold Ridge. In the end, that didn't happen because some of the houses on Travis had burned right near Center School, and then they changed that. So the Gold Ridge population is basically going to Center without having to access the base. Now, up here, the school district has property on Opal, and people ask me when I'm walking neighborhoods, when is the new school going to be built? I do talk quite a bit to the superintendent and have for years about the enrollment. It was, and she was saying, well, we have declining enrollment. How can we have declining enrollment when Cambridge is so packed? But when they figure that, they look at all the school space and all the total numbers and then divide it out, and they can say we have space even though the schools on base might have space, but we're overcrowded. The issue with Cambridge was they were supposed to put portables in at the end of the summer, and then other things didn't happen, and so that's why Cambridge is so crowded. Just this past week, I met with the superintendent and a member of the board and our city manager to talk about issues. And there is a bond measure on the Travis district. One reason why I ran for the city council was I did not like the fact that the council or people would say the school district, because they didn't always acknowledge that Travis was a school district and almost all of District 6 goes to Travis district.
Thank you, Mr. Chastain.
Thank you very much. So Measure M for the school districts is to be able to provide maintenance to the existing schools, not any growth, not any addition, or anything like that. The issue is that this is so government-like. We have one finger pointing at one person, the other finger, and they're pointing at each other, blaming each other for the problem. If you have a problem and you're not getting anywhere, then you form coalitions. You get out there and you tell them over and over and over, and you bring the people to the meetings. You say, Pam Conklin, the superintendent of Travis School District, come to all of our city council meetings. We're going to talk about you at all of our city council meetings. You have a boss. We're going to talk to your boss. We're going to make sure that people are aware of where the problem's at, what we can do to solve the problem, and that's really the only answer. When you have problems, you find a way to solve them. You don't find ways to talk about how you can't solve them. You find a solution. If we all get together, then we can find solutions to all of our problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What are your top 3 priorities you want to achieve during your term of office? How do you envision achieving these goals, Mr. Chastain?
Thank you for the question. Very good. Top 3 priorities. First of all, bring the voice back to Vacaville. That's the easy one. That's the one where we can just switch that on with technology. We just decided to turn that off. I used to be in the IT division. I can tell you right now, I can go in and do it for them right now. There's no reason that we remove that capability. The second one is going to be address the city's safety issues, things like crosswalks, things like floods, things like fires. If you walk down Alamo Creek, it's full of brush. We get any kind of rain, we're going to flood. And if it's not going to flood, then next year during fire season, we're going to burn. The next issue that I'm going to address is going to be that of helping out the businesses and bringing that into the issue with the housing issue. So really, yesterday and today, what they need to be doing is figuring out how to be zoning the city's properties properly, and working on the housing element to keep developers from exploiting the Vacaville as well. So these are all things that can be handled at one time. Three priorities that, within inside of a month, we should have these things solved. So the first month in office, guys, let me do this job. Consider it done.
Thank you, Mrs. Wiley.
Thank you very much for the question. And the top 3 priorities for me, I would say the one priority is following the strategic goals that we've already set. And, I'm 1 city council member out of 7. When I was working with the teachers and the school board looking for candidates, I didn't want to just get the band parent who only wanted the band program, or the athlete who only wanted an athletic program, or a special needs parent who only was concerned with special ed. I needed someone that was looking at the whole district, and I feel like our strategic goals looks at all the needs. Number 1 is public safety. We have to continue to put efforts into maintaining public safety. There are issues with people looking at other cities or going to other cities. How can we hire who we need and keep who we hire? Another one is economy. 70% of our people drive outside of Vacaville for their job. We need to bring businesses and good jobs to Vacaville so that people can have a living wage and not have to drive outside for that. The next one is quality of life. And that's for everyone having the parks they need, the amenities that they need, and the time that they need to enjoy their life. We have to have a lot of activities that we've also had. We were able to bring back Creek Walk this year as well. Another one is the efficient services. We don't want to have services people doing jobs that are not needed. We don't want to have jobs needed but unfilled. So we need to have efficient and effective services. And the last one is diversity, equity, and inclusion, which kind of fits in with all those things. So my top 3 priorities are just work toward those strategic goals rather than throwing new things on the table.
Thank you. The next question is about homelessness. What is your position on homelessness in Vacaville, and what can be done to combat homelessness? Mrs. Wiley?
Homelessness is an issue in Vacaville, across California, and across the United States. There are many reasons why we have homeless people, and part of it is the high cost of housing, the high cost of living, the lack of mental health services, the lack of quality jobs, and some substance abuse. So they have to address what is the cause for homelessness and how we can fix that, which is not just Vacaville doing that. I have not been on any of the homeless committees. I am glad that we did go to a county committee, so we have, we're working with other cities as well, because that is not something that we can just solve. I have done several ride-alongs with the police, and one of them I did was with the crew committee, and I'm not exactly sure what crew stands for, but it's like a citizen response, so that if there's an issue, they go out and find out that. So we went out early in the morning, and we went to see people that were homeless under the bridge or in the park or by the creek, and our council and you as taxpayers pay for X amount of shelter beds. And so we try to get with the person and say, this shelter is available, we can take you there. And some people went, some people didn't, because that was not a time where it was very, very hot and very, very cold. I do feel like we are absolutely responsible for providing support in the extremes so that people do not have to be outside. And our crew department got kind of shut down for a while when we were short of patrol. And I would advocate, bringing that back so that we can have the support for the homeless citizens that need it, and just continuing to look for other resources, because it is an issue. But there are people that are needing help.
Thank you, Mr. Chastain. Same question.
Thank you very much. So the Opportunity House that we have here in town provides a great example of non-city-based type organizations that help out people who have needs and need help, who are housing insecure. Shelters are something that are needed throughout our county. Houses that people can afford are things that are needed throughout our community. There really isn't enough that's done to be able to help people who need the help the most. When it was 117 out, I reached out to the city council and I said, hey, while your police / the crew are out there shaking down the homeless people, can they give them bottles of water, so that they can have some water? These are the things that if you're detached from it, if you don't know where the homeless camps are, if you're not food insecure, if you're not housing insecure, then you really only know how to talk about the issues. Living out of your car, if you're lucky enough to have a car, or having to stand in line at a food bank, is a very humiliating thing. I've eaten out of the food bank this whole year. You want to talk about surviving? You want to talk about the food banks we have around town? These are all church-based organizations that go and help our community. So how does our government jump in there and help the community that only the churches are willing to help? Government just needs to take a more proactive kind of an approach to it, and sending the cops out to deal with these guys isn't the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we go to our last question. Oh, you have another one. Okay. With more than 25% of high school students using e-cigarettes, what are some ways you will reduce youth access and use? Mr. Chastain, you go first on this question.
Thank you. I don't want to deflect the question, but I think things like fentanyl use is something that really scares me a lot more than e-cigarettes. E-cigarette use is a scary thing, but the young people out there trying something for the first time and then dying from it is a really, really scary thing. So I think that reaching out to young people at their house, at every level, letting them know what's good for them and what's not good for them, and the dangers involved with doing stuff. Like if you try something once, it will kill you possibly. So don't do it. Just stay away from it. That's really sending that message to young people. Hopefully is going to get through to them. Nobody wants to see their children growing up with a lifetime habit like use of cigarettes and nicotine, or not even have that ability and try something for the first time and die from it because they decided to get a joint from a kid at school and smoke it, and it's laced with fentanyl and it kills them. So letting them know the dangers and hazards, they're real, is what I would do.
Ms. Wiley, same question, please.
I do feel like e-cigarettes is a big issue, and the smoking, because it's crazy that so many young people are doing that, my son included. My husband and I never smoked. We just really never expected our son to smoke. But then he went to college and came home, a smoker, and has been, for 10 years. And I just feel like that young people need to, they hear it, smoking is bad, but if there's anxiety or other things, so things like being involved in sports, being involved in music programs, getting, really being happy and involved in a good way is a stop. I think it's important to legislate that, but it's so hard because when you fight the big companies like Juul, you can't always tell them to stop, or there's always ways around it. Because just recently there was a rule about the flavored nicotine, and they found some way to say, oh no, we're not going to have to stop selling the flavored nicotine. I think that getting the youth involved themselves, I think was the county program, wasn't there something like Saturday Night Live or Saturday Night Youth, or they did a program so that they were making commercials and things like that, so that when you hear it from your peer, it's different than hearing it from your parent. So I do feel like just continuing to hear that message and give positive alternatives. I was out at the soccer group a couple of weeks ago, and if our kids are involved in sports and music and other things, then they are going to be less prone to get into e-cigarettes and things like that. So those are things that I think are important, but I do wish that no one would be smoking.
Thank you. This is our last question. The current administration voted against having hybrid city council meetings. What is your position on having hybrid meetings to encourage and engage more citizens to participate in their governance? Would you support the council revisiting that issue? Mr. Chastain, why don't you take this question?
It's my turn first, I think, unless you want him to answer first.
No, I just didn't know if you, since you just spoke, if you kind of getting tired.
No.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to be sensitive to your.
That's okay. My teacher voice and teaching all day, so I'm pretty good to go.
Okay.
So I said earlier that we did have a vote about this, and the way the city council chamber is set up, they were just talking about the cost it would take to make it a hybrid. It's not like you could just say, okay, let's do that. They would have to have these expenses to bring different things in. And I and two other people said, let's do it, let's try it. We'll try a pilot program that maybe we won't do all the expense first, but let's see how we can make it more accessible. And if that works, then we'll expend the rest of the money. We weren't saying, let's go in and spend, $100,000 to do this, because we didn't know also how long the need might be. However, after lengthy discussion and the vote, there were 4 people who said, if people want to come to the city council meeting, they have to come here in person. We'll pack this building or they won't come. So when there was a 4-3 vote, I couldn't change that. I said I would be happy to revisit it, but until something happens with those 4 people changing their mind, I can't make a change by myself. And there's rules about how you can talk to people, and I can't talk to all of them individually and say, here's why I support it, won't you support it too? Because that violates the Brown Act.
Thank you, Mr. Chastain.
So like I mentioned before, I worked in the IT division for 20 years. The name of the system that they use for putting that out on YouTube is called Granicus. They had it in place with people being able to phone in. I put in the phone systems. They had it in place before the pandemic. During the pandemic, they put it into play. And then once the police started getting negative feedback for harassing the community, they decided to stop it. It's as simple as this, guys. I'd like to make a motion at this council meeting, this is at the end of the meeting, they all get to make a motion to bring back hybrid meetings at city council meetings. And you can say that every single council meeting, and you can put it on record, hey, this person voted no, this person voted no, this person voted no. And then it's out there that everybody, that you wanted the hybrid meetings at the meetings. It's as simple as saying, I'd like to make a motion, is how you actually make that happen. So I'm a proponent of it. I don't see why we're not still doing it. Actually, I do know why we're not doing it, but I am totally against us not doing it. When we went to a district-based system, it became more difficult for individuals to pass through what they wanted to get done because they had to do a little politicking with one another. They had to actually play nice with each other, and the dysfunctionalities of the city council is what really has come out during this district-based kind of system. People who don't get along with other people, they haven't formed coalitions with one another, they can't agree on stuff, and then we end up getting nowhere. That's where we're at now.
Thank you. We will now have our closing statements. Mrs. Wiley, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I do feel like I have gotten things done on the city council. I ran in 2020 because I wanted to be represented in District 6. And I feel like I add an important perspective. And I feel like I'm the best candidate to represent District 6 of the 4 candidates that will be on the ballot. And I have the skills and the background, I think, that make me an ideal candidate. You kind of wonder sometimes how your life got you where you got, but I feel like the skills that I have had in the last 60-some plus years have made me a good candidate for city council. I retired in 2018 and thought I would happily be walking the dog and quilting and reading, and people said, Jeanette, you should run for city council. Jeanette, you should run for city council. It wasn't something that I said, oh, I've always wanted to be on city council, so maybe I'll run. I didn't say no fast enough, and so I got more involved. I ran for city council in 2020, thinking I would just be there for 2 years. But now I feel like I have learned a lot, and it would be kind of, why did I do 2 years worth if I just say, well, no, I'm not going to run anymore? I would do that if I felt like one of the candidates would represent me in the way that I want to be represented. But honestly, I feel like I'm the best person for that job. This is not an endorsement meeting, but I want to just say I have a lot of endorsements from teachers, from elected officials, from the national, state, and local level, from a lot of organizations, and the Sierra Club and Orderly Growth and Democratic clubs. So I have a lot of support. It was also interesting when I ran that people reached out to me and said, Jeanette, I'll help you, or I'm so-and-so, let me help you with your campaign. So people that I have known for a long time stepped in and helped, but then other people said, I heard what you said, I saw you at that meeting, I think you'll do a good job, how can I help you? So the other thing is, this is really a big commitment. because I am retired, I spend a lot of time on city council. I really don't see how people who are working full-time and have a young family can do the job, because it's a big job. But I do spend a lot of time and dedication for that. And I hear from residents, I listen to residents, I knocked on doors, people say, oh, I voted for you in 2020, I'm going to vote for you again. So I feel like I've had positive support. I feel like I can do a good job for District 6 and be a positive part of the council.
Thank you, Mr. Chastain.
Well, so it's a complete honor to be here before everybody. Thank you so much, everybody, for showing up, for giving us this opportunity. I didn't take any endorsements at all from anybody. I wanted to be accountable to the community. I don't know if I am the best person for the job. I'd like to do my best for everybody. I will try and fight for everybody with all my heart. I think that Vacaville deserves no less. That's really what I have to say. I hope that everybody really votes with their heart, and you know, our community is going through a lot of changes, as it always has. We need to be focusing on the problems that we have now, and have the foresight to see the problems that we face in the future. And the problems that we're creating now are going to be the problems of our youth. And so I thank our youth for showing up tonight. That really, really great. Thank you so much. That really gives me something to look forward to. So thank you, everybody, very much. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Wow, that was very informative, and I want to thank the two candidates who showed up. I want to remind everybody here and everybody in the audience that every candidate running in the city of Vacaville was invited to attend this event and the other two events. And these are the people who showed up, and we are very, very grateful for that. As a member of the League of Women Voters, but more importantly as a citizen, and as an aunt to these beautiful girls over here, and a grandmother, and a mother, I can't tell you how important it is for us, and as a black woman, how important it is for us to be informed about how we're being governed. And if you are informed, then you know that a government of, by, and for the people means that we have a role to play. And part of that role is to make sure that you get to know who is going to be representing you in those government halls. So I really want to extend my appreciation to everybody who came out tonight and to everybody who's watching. And remember, your vote is your voice. Make sure that you are making an informed choice. And that's what we tried to do here for you tonight, and I hope that you got a lot out of it, because I certainly did. So I hope you did as well. So thank you, everybody, for showing up, and everybody that's listening, and for your questions. And just keep in mind that if you don't vote, what my mama used to say, you can't complain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Ballots will be coming out in 2 weeks, probably about the mid-October. The ballots should be dropping for Solano County. The 11th. Yeah, so you can eat there the 11th. So good.
And all the information you need, we have.
Please drive safe, everybody.